Listen to this. A new survey showing Gen Z is leading the way in church attendance.
He is tapped in with Gen Z, the one, the only John Rush.
Should Christians be involved in politics?
The morning Charlie Kirk got assassinated, we were reacting to a video.
One of Charlie Kirk's last acts before leaving this earth was to call out Pastor Stephen Furtick of Elevation Church.
He called out Stephen Furtick. Yeah. So many pastors, they're not shepherds, they're more communicators, they're more thought leaders, they're more content creators.
When I preach and post to Gen Z, the topics that pop off the most, like the wrath of God.
Sometimes I worry that you guys know so much about your emotions that you start to become ruled by them. You can sometimes hear the warmth, encouraging love of Father God, and all of a sudden the Holy Spirit comes in a different way and hits you with that conviction.
So we're about to start telling like our lighting people to start programming less light.
Oh, all the Orthodox and the Catholics are like, you guys like your laser shows.
Ruslan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, he is a forward thinker. He is tapped in with Gen Z. He's tapped in as an agency helping a lot of other organizations, nonprofits, churches be on the cutting edge of whatever this revival is that's happening in culture. The one, the only John Rush.
Ham horn myself.
They can't hear this. You can't hear it, but there's clapping happening.
Yeah.
It's
Let's
clapping
go.
for you. Okay, so real quick, origin story between you and me. So
the beef.
The beef. I don't know if it was a beef. I guess it was a bit of a beef. So the way we connected was very interesting because you used to work at Elevation Church.
Yeah, we were there for 5 years, Charlotte, North Carolina.
5 years.
2019 and 2024.
Yeah. And I, in 2022, did a video. I did a couple videos. Most of them are done.
Yeah.
Most of them are down.
Yeah.
Regarding Furtick.
Yep.
And specifically Elijah Furtick's rapping.
Yeah.
Spinning the block.
What was the album called? I got
what was the album called? I don't know.
One of them was Teen Machine.
Yeah, shout out to
Do the Dash.
Do the Dash. Shout out to Do the Dash. Shout out to Elijah Furtick. And this is what I will say. I had to really talk to my therapist through this. It was called Teen Machine. Yeah. Teen Machine. I really did not want to make that video, but the video was more or less, it's down now, but people can probably find clips of it. It was more or less like, and I reached out to Elijah, I reached out to Steven, I reached out to Holly.
Yeah.
Really like, hey man, like you're saying some wild stuff in this song.
Yeah.
And it's like unbecoming of a pastor's kid. Like, please stop.
Yeah.
He blocked me.
Yeah.
I spent another couple of days praying about it. And because there's folks from Elevation sending it to me.
Yeah.
And like, hey, this is going to go viral. This is going to go viral. So like, you should talk about it before it goes viral and try to be gentle about it. And I did my best. I don't think I was as gentle as I could have been. Long story short, made that video, felt awful about it. Full circle moment, me and Elijah kind of became friendly over DMs, which was real cool. I don't know if that would be his retelling of it, but that's definitely my retelling of it. He reached out and was like, hey man, I got some new music. I got some, check this out. And new music was way better, way more wholesome. He wasn't spinning the block.
I just texted him, so maybe we'll get some text recountings.
Maybe we'll get some text recountings. And long story short, so at this point, I had taken down the video.
Yeah.
I already felt bad about the video. Not because I disagree with anything I said in the video, but because I think I had grown in compassion for the pressure that pastors' kids are under and pastors are under. And I just probably wouldn't do that again today. Unless I could talk to someone like that. Like, unless
have him on.
He
was 16.
He was 16. Well, no, he was 17.
Yeah, 17.
17, yes.
It just probably turned 17.
Just probably turned 17, correct.
Yeah, which probably is what you mean where you're like, dang, he's a teenager.
Yeah. And so, long story short, like I think the Lord redeemed the moment in the sense of like, he didn't keep me blocked and stayed angry at me forever.
Yeah.
I took the video down and wouldn't do that today.
Yeah.
And then one day you reach out to me or somehow we get connected on Instagram.
Yeah.
You pull up. I'm actually about to do an FPU class. This is now a year or something after the fact.
I can't believe you're going to let me
tell a story.
I can't believe you're going to let me tell this story.
Tell the story.
So I was in town for TwitchCon because TwitchCon, like content creator world, I'm here for that.
Yeah. Because that's the world you're kind of plugged into.
Yeah, that's the world I'm trying to plug into and redeem. And even here, we just had a meal and I got a couple of our Christian content creators that are trying to win in that space. And just shouts out, I'm about to, after this, go hang out with my boy Bearded Blevins, who is Ninja's brother, like Ninja with the blue hair.
That's dope.
And he is a man that loves Jesus and is also a huge content creator in his own route. So, in his own right. And so I was just in town and it was like 2 days and someone mentioned me like, oh, yo, you know, Ruslan lives here. And I'm like, no way. So I just DM'd you and I was like, bro, this is mad weird, but this is who I am. And like, yo, let me pull up. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. I'm at church. I'm just getting in from out of town and I'm doing Financial Peace University. And I pull it to the church.
You probably thought like, what is this dude doing with the FPU and the church and all this stuff?
Bro, but I'm not going to lie. It like instantly won me over.
Huh.
And it instantly is from that moment on, any Ruslan haters, I have a sword to wield with. And I'm like, I'm a stand, because what I can't stand is people who talk about Jesus but aren't connected to the local church. Like I'm really anti that. And I think that's over the years, you've probably been accused of being that, or who's this thumbnail making that, you know.
Sure.
But my first interaction with you is you doing what every church volunteer has ever done. Going through the church kitchen. Where's the remote for the TV and the thing? It was like, we were back in the church kitchen and you're like grabbing napkins and you're like, yo, the intern didn't set up the iMac, you know? And you're like, yeah.
I'm setting up the iMac, trying to log into FPU. Yeah.
And then this is why I'm surprised, because I took a video because I was literally like about to just post and be like, hey, anyone who wants to know what Ruslan is like, this is him. And what then made me think even higher of you is you were like, hey, please just don't like put this up here.
Yeah.
Like this is like between me, you know, and the Lord, and I just don't want to seem like, so I'm glad that I get to talk about it because I've always wanted to.
Yeah. It's you know, when you're in the moment of it, it's like, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. But we ended up, so we connect, and you're like, you know, those are your peoples.
Yeah, I was their youth pastor.
You was the Furtick's son's youth pastor.
Yeah, and we have, because of like your music career, we have mutual friends. You didn't know this at the time, but like Mike LV and like Marty and like these we people that were in this world.
Yep.
So when that whole Elijah thing was happening, I'm like, Ruslan acted like he tried to get a hold of everyone. I'm his youth pastor. He didn't try to get a hold of me. He could have texted my friend and we could have talked. Guess what?
I did try to get a hold of the other youth pastor.
Wow.
We're not going to talk about, but the brother that had to move on, unfortunately, for reasons people can all Google. I pulled up in a live stream of his.
For real?
Yes, bro. I pulled up in a live stream of his.
He just didn't
and
respond.
He just acted like I wasn't there. There was like 15 people watching. And I was in that live stream. So I actually did not know that I was connected to the youth pastor there.
And that's the thing about big churches, bro. It's like there's the figureheads that are more on like the central team, and then there's like the campus team who are actually on the ground with humans. And so that was my role in Elijah and Graham Furtick's.
And you were transitioning when we had met from Elevation.
So it would have, So if it was this time last year then I had 2 months off of staff, but we were still living in Charlotte attending, because when we came off staff, we just wanted to try to make it the least dramatic transition ever. Our oldest was old enough to where the move affected her. So we're like, yo, let her finish school and like, let's be chill. But yeah, I've been off staff at that. And it was 2 months into my new journey of life and trying to make up for 2 salaries and all that.
Yeah. And now online, I feel like the stuff that I'm hearing from you, by the way, your Instagram to me is like, you're consistently getting really good, thoughtful, and I know this word's kind of played, but like nuanced takes on a lot of the stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
And one of your takes, because what I don't want to do is dunk on any church, because I think I love the local church.
Right.
But a lot of what you've been talking about and what we talked about offline is this idea that, man, like the model of the seeker friendly, the model of the big mega church, you think is fading in a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, the interesting, like when Blockbuster was going down, the moment Blockbuster started going down, it was at its peak. And so financially, if you look up the whole time lapse thing of Blockbuster things and Netflix, by the time that Blockbuster was noticing it financially, it had already started to decline,
and it was too late.
It was too late. And so I think that so of course there are churches that are still successful in that, but I think the cat's out the bag. The trend's gone. Even recent events, it's like, bro, the whole idea of like seeker sensitive vanilla, we're not going to address stuff. Even like that person not talking in the live stream is so indicative of that culture of like, and I'm like, people don't have tolerance for that anymore. They want New Testament pastor, New Testament Christian approach to cultural issues, and they want clarity. And so, yeah, man, I honestly think it's done for. And I would even say you can look at, churches like Life Church and Church of the Highlands, where I have a lot of friends and know the teams there. You'd be shocked at some of the shifts and things they're changing to try to be like, yo, we don't we're trying to be something different because this is literally, I heard Chris Hodges. It was just a group of like 20 of us with him. And he was talking about like, yo, we're about to start telling like our lighting people to start programming less lights. Like just we're trying to like really
all the Orthodox and the Catholics are like, you guys like your laser shows.
you know. Hey, well y'all like them gold robes. So what are we talking about?
So that's interesting. So you're getting this now. Let me ask you this. Do you think this is more of a structural issue within what we would call the seeker model?
Yeah. Of
like, we're not going to talk about any hot topic issues, abortion, gay, trans.
Yeah.
None of that's going to get talked about. Anything culturally relative. Charlie Kirk, we're not going to talk about that. Do you think that it's that model, or do you think it's a bigger issue with mega churches in general?
Well, it's a good question. I would say that those are two ideas that probably are worth talking about separately, but then at the same time they're going to meet each other at a head. Meaning, I don't think that people inherently have a problem with a large church. I think even in New Testament church, we see explosive growth, and even in early Acts, one of the greatest moments of true multiplicative leadership was with the deacons, where and you start to see these roles form. And so I don't think that it's necessarily about the church just getting smaller. I think it's just making sure that we can answer this question. And I think this is honestly like one of the most pressing questions for Christians anywhere is, what is church for? Like what are and a lot of the modern seeker-sensitive movement has gotten really popular being like, we are the church and the church and the church and the church. And that's cool. But like, I think, what is Sunday for? What is our corporate gatherings for? And who is it for? I think that's the big question right now.
Yeah. I think some of the stuff that we have, we talked about a little bit about like the Forrest Frank Jelly Roll situation.
Yeah.
And you have Jelly Roll winning a Dove Award. It kind of sends a shot at Forrest. I'm glad I didn't miss the Forest for the Trees.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. They've since talked. But the frustrating part is then the world, or the folks that are hyper skeptical of institutions, are like, the church is a charity. Why aren't you guys doing more stuff? Why aren't you guys feeding more poor people? Why aren't you visiting more people in prison?
Yeah.
And I would say the church can, like, you can give through your church, and the church does do that. The data just shows that the average person gives $700 a year to philanthropy. The average Christian gives $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
Christians adopt at 2.5 times the rate as non-Christians.
Yeah.
Name a metric, and Christians have the world beat at any metric.
100%.
Right? But I do think there's some of this projection on the church of like, why aren't you guys a charity? Why aren't you guys doing more soup kitchens? Why aren't you guys feeding more homeless people? And it's like, I think the church can and does that, but I don't think that's the primary function of the church. I think the church here, it exists to preach and teach the gospel, gather corporately, do the sacraments, spiritual formation, discipleship, and yes, and also care for the widows and the downtrodden within the church. And then Galatians says, do good to all people, but especially those in the household of faith. So there's a hierarchy of things that the church is supposed to do, and an order to those things.
Well, and if Ephesians 4, equip the saints to do ministry.
Yes.
Like, I think pastors have to get back to centering their church's models, not on what can the church do, but what can we inspire the church to do, the people to do.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
One of the things that happened to me at Elevation was there's a friend of mine. I was also one of his pastors, very large YouTuber, and he was going through a really hard time. Ended up in the hospital type things, and I think we were providing decent care to him. It was not like we were not providing care to him, but one morning I was sitting and doing something in the back of the sanctuary or something, and I seen him, and there was just this like moment, and I feel like it was the Holy Spirit. It reminds me of the moments, and I just had this realization of like, Elevation is like the biggest online presence of any church, and if you would combine all the platforms of Elevation, it wouldn't have eclipsed this one man. And it just broke my heart, and I felt God break my heart to say, I think sometimes in our effort to be impactful corporately, we forsake maybe the greatest opportunities to be impactful, which is to steward the individuals God has given us.
That's good.
Mr. Beast grew up in a Christian school. Mr. Beast is on record saying that his conclusion of Christianity was that God hates gay people. Mr. Beast used to have
he said that.
Yeah. It's in Simone and Amir. What are those two dudes that
Colin and Samir.
Colin and Samir.
He said
yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And he used to have a Bible verse in his banner.
I remember.
So so I just, to pastors, I'm like, hey, I think if you're going to be a pastor of a church, you need to make sure that your motivation is not to become the next Mr. Beast, but to pastor and steward and foster the next Mr. Beast.
Sheesh! I'm gonna hit you with a little air horn. You can't hear it. That's really good. So okay, so I've made this point before, and I've gotten in trouble for it. This is in that same phase of 2021, 2022, Ruslan, which I've grown and evolved, and I love the local church. But I've said, I think there are so many people who are, so many pastors who aren't shepherds, which is what that word pastor means.
Yep.
It means to shepherd, to shepherd one as Jesus shepherds us, as a shepherd shepherds the sheep. That they're not shepherds, they're more communicators, they're more thought leaders, they're more content creators. And my theory has been a lot of our celebrity pastors that are personality driven.
Yeah.
I've said, hey, I think if they were around and they were starting today, if they're starting 2022, 2024, 2025, I think many of them would be doing what I'm doing and not on a platform. You know, and not in a local church context. And again, I teach in a local church context. I teach at my church.
Right.
But I'm not a shepherd. I know I'm not a shepherd. I know I'm not here because the role of a pastor is hard. You got to lead the staff. You got to preach and teach every week. So you got to spend time in the Word, which is Acts 6 talks about they shouldn't consume themselves with waiting tables, that they need to devote themselves to prayer and the ministry of the Word. Right. You have to counsel, shepherd people, Mary, Barry, go to hospital visits, right?
About the same, like this is about the same issues.
Over
over again.
Yes.
And
I'm not that guy.
And I'm not, I don't know that I am either. Like that's where I realized they wanted me to become a campus pastor, which especially at Elevation was you don't preach, you don't teach, you're more of a manager. And I just had this realization, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I just had this realization where I'm like, it would actually be unfaithful for me to take this shepherding role because I would get bored because this was peak. My content was starting to go and I'm like, bro, I think people should not feel bad to say, I don't feel like I'm that guy to sit down and listen to people talk all day. I think you should just be honest with yourself. And that's okay because there's someone that is. The deacons, they found 7 dudes who were graced and gifted differently than them. And here's the beauty of then how the Bible goes on to illustrate Stephen and like especially Philip the evangelist's life is that the Holy Spirit also has a way of using them in supernatural, evangelistic, even communicative ways. So it's not saying that like, oh, you're either this or you're that. I just think you kind of have to know what your primary gifting, calling, maybe even assignment, is.
And I know for me that my assignment was not local church ministry. I knew that because I was at a crossroads 2013 to 2015. I worked at my church. I did the media. I taught a couple times on a Sunday morning. I led the young adults group. And I knew very quickly, man, I am not cut out for this. This is not my wiring. It wasn't even a financial issue. Like we were debt free. We were okay. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. We knew how to survive on not a lot. But I just knew, and I had this fork in the road moment, and I thought to myself, man, if I don't go after music now, and being a creative entrepreneur who's a Christian, I may never have this opportunity again. If I just go with the road of least resistance, which is just stay working at a church, I may not be able to do this later. But I knew that, man, I could make this mistake at the time, right? In hindsight, it wasn't a mistake. It was what I was supposed to do. I could do this now and say I fumble, say I can't make any money, I have to go drive for Uber or Lyft. I knew I could go and work at a church when I was 35 or 40. But I knew I couldn't try to revitalize a rap career that then led to a YouTube career when I was 35 or 40. And so I made the decision to go this way. And by the grace of God, it paid off. And I just wonder how many folks that are in these positions, whether these personality, big brand folks, would serve themselves and their communities better by just being personalities.
Well, I think the last like 30 years of church was wrought with the testimony of, I was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and then I left to go be the executive pastor. I think the next 5 to 10 years of church is going to have a lot of testimonies of the opposite. I was pastoring a large, fast-growing church, and I realized my gifts are more conducive to leading a company at a high level, and that my greatest kingdom impact will be to go lead a Fortune 500 company that makes millions and millions of dollars. Wow. And I think that's
interesting.
I think there will be a reckoning of just answering the question, and this is where we got to get back on our theology game. This is where we, again, we're not, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I'm like, I'm not all like Eastern Orthodox pilled, or I'm not like full Catholic pilled, but one thing that I am really certain of is we have got to get a deeper sense of church history and church structure in evangelical world, because we're kind of acting like there is no blueprint. And I'm like, I think we need to go back to where there are some blueprints. And for all the areas we don't have a blueprint, we need to reestablish it and just really just go, man, what is a shepherd? What is Sunday for? What is godly ambition? That's why I love that you wrote that book, because we need more people that are proactively thinking, and even just the stuff of like, so many of us were at a youth camp where the altar call to reach the world was about being a pastor. And then 90% of the room responded because that was the only option you gave them.
Yeah, you give them two options. If you feel like you're supposed to, be in ministry, hey, you can be a pastor or a worship leader.
Yep.
And there's so many other things you can do from a local church, and I'd say in a local church, and just be a pastor or a worship leader.
And then we wonder why have there been such a lack of leading innovators, inventors, and artists? And there are lots of them. God is doing a lot of good stuff. But at the same time, I think that we could see even more. And even I would say my friends who are running companies and inventing like truly brilliant stuff, I don't think they always know their place in the church, because a lot of church language is like, you want to make a difference? Lead a small group. You want to make a difference? Hold the doors. You want to find your purpose? And it's like, homie, I got 5 kids on homeschool. I got a purpose. I run one of the largest AR companies. I got a purpose. And I think pastors need to fall back in love with just the sheep God has given them. And I would even say this, realizing that that's also the greatest evangelism strategy.
Oh, that's good.
Invite culture is a secondhand measure that we have turned into our primary strategy.
Okay.
When I think that teaching the people of our church how to evangelize their relationships, their place of work, will lead to attendance records and true transformation in a way that I don't think we haven't even scratched the surface. Church on the movies is little guy compared to what I think that when churches start to say, hey, yeah, invite your unsaved friends to church, but also, do you know how to share your faith and your testimony? That's the energy we need to be on.
Yeah, I mean, the church in the first century exploded because of hospitality.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of, even in Southern California, we've been talking about, like at my church, like, hey man, like we gotta, like all this, like I'm gonna sneak in and sneak out of church and not say hi to anybody. Like we this is not it. But then we discovered, and I didn't talk about this earlier today, but we discovered, and I'll tell you who it is offline, but like, we have folks in our church who are in a small group. They're seeking to grow.
Yeah.
And there are small groups that got to stop. So like we're thinking like, man, SoCal culture, people sneaking in and out, they're not very hospitable. You can live next to people and not say hello to them. You could be in church every Sunday and not say hello, sneak in, sneak out. I don't like that. Right? I don't think that's biblical. So we're like railing against some of our own culture. But then there's people in small groups right now that are like, they don't know why like hooking up on a Friday night is sinful. They don't know why sex outside of marriage is not the way God designed it. Like they don't even have like a basic biblical sex ethic.
Right.
So it's like, we're trying to get these folks to be more hospitable, but they have other worldview issues.
Right.
But they're coming. Like these aren't folks that are like not going. They're coming to Sunday enough to say, okay, I guess I'm going to go join a group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you made a point at lunch where you said, man, only 4% of Gen Z has a biblical worldview.
Yep.
Unpack that for me.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, again, 15 years of youth ministry in 2 large churches I've been a part of, and still get to speak at these large youth gatherings. Let me tell you one thing that's going to happen. The Holy Spirit's going to move. People are going to respond. God's presence is going to do God's presence. People are going to like respond to Jesus. And so I would even say like some of this whole Gen Z revival thing, I'm not skeptical. I'm not skeptical on if it's authentic. I'm skeptical on if it will last. And I don't mean that from a sense of, man, they're doing something wrong. I'm asking the question, are we coming around this revival? Are we deconstructing it and taking it apart to know why is it working and what's happening? So for instance, I was just in England for 2 weeks and I was interviewing a lot of pastors to ask about this Gen Z revival and awakening in England. The vast majority of pastors who don't know each other were saying, I was like, what happened? And they're like, we don't know. The way they describe it is a decentralized move of God that the church is trying to catch up to. meaning God's doing something, and thank God people are going to his church, which is, I think, exactly what the Spirit will do. He'll send people to his church. And so all this revival without discipleship, though, is not going to go anywhere. And so a lot of people defend, seeker-sensitive movement and attractional church movement. Look at all the fruit, look at all the fruit, look at all the fruit. The fruit I see is every report Barna takes. The standard of young people's biblical worldview continues to plummet. Gen Z's at 4%. And we've got YouTube, we've got TikTokers, we've got our boy Forrest out there, we've got Jelly Roll coming to cry.
Yeah.
Only 4% of Gen Z have a biblical worldview.
Yeah, and this is where I go back to like the people that watch this channel. Like man, I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad you're watching. But revival is not going to happen on a screen. Yep. It's not going to happen in an arena with Forrest. It's not going to happen in a stadium with Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham. It's going to happen in your living room. Yeah, it's going to happen when you, especially the older saints that watch this channel, or excuse me, the mature saints. I want to be careful. The mature saints, that you guys have your own home. You're doing well. You're in a solid place in your marriage. You're in a solid place in your finances. When you guys open up your homes and say, "Hey, I want to bring in these folks, these young men that are showing up to church, record-breaking, first time in history, modern history. There's more young men coming to church than young women. Right? When you guys start opening up your home and saying, "Hey, I want to do life with these folks," and it doesn't have to be you're gonna get the house perfect. You're gonna have dinner. Yeah. They just want to be around. Yes. They just want to be around. They just want to hang. They want to see you as a father. They want to see you as a spouse. They want to see you as a dad, as a mom. They want to be around and do life with people.
And they want to open the Bible, I think.
And they want to open the Bible. And so I think like revival happens at dinner tables. Revival happens in circles. Revival happens in your living room. All of this and church on Sunday, like that all of that is great. Yeah. But I'm really like pushing for people. I mean, I have a whole chapter in Godly Ambition dedicated to like the local church. Yeah. I'm a byproduct of the local church, a flawed local church. Yeah. A local church that had issues. But man, I wouldn't be here if dudes didn't open up their lives to me. Right. And so like that's what I'm hoping that people get a hold of is like, if you're not in the local church, get in the local church. Yeah. If you're in the local church, open up your home. Start meeting those people on a Sunday and say, "Hey, I wanna come over, come hang out." And I think that's where discipleship happens. I think because it's like I've never discipled somebody and say, "I am your disciple." Yeah, like it's never been like that. It's always been life on life, hanging out and walking through the scriptures, and then eventually, much of that becomes caught. Yeah, that is taught, but some of it is caught and not taught.
But let me give you my perspective on Gen Z, because I get what you're saying. Like you don't want people to. There is that dude who like walks up to you and be like, "Do you know the prophetic revelation of Ezekiel 38. Yeah. And you're like, bro, I don't know you know? Yeah. And we don't want to be that guy lording over it. Yeah. But I do think that I do want to encourage the mature saints, even if you're like 25, but you've been following Jesus for a while. I do think there is an openness in the world where I think that you should kind of formalize it. Like, I think people would be receptive to some level of formalizing it, being like, hey, I would love to bring you on a discipleship journey. Like, I would love to I would love to help form you. Yeah. I would love to be one of the mentors. Like, I don't think, like, there are some people where you have to build relationship and build equity, and there's some but I just want to encourage someone listening to this. There are some people in your life that you don't have to, like, there needs to be no, like, introduction other than they're ready, and you just go, hey, do you want to grow in your faith? Yes. I can teach you. That's what that's like good. Paul, one of the things I like about Paul is just, like, he's not afraid to, like, flex his credentials a bit. Yep. And I just want to encourage mature Christians. Yes. There is an appropriate way to flex your spiritual credentials that I think is attractive to new Christians.
You know, that's so good you say that, because I was just thinking, like, when I said that, like, you don't have to make it this, like, super formal thing. You know what I think that was for me is because I ended up mentoring and discipling a bunch of guys my age. Yeah, yeah. And that would have been weird at, like, because I'm walking with Jesus for 5-6 years. I'm 22, 23, 24. Yeah. And I'm mentoring somebody that's my age, but I'm half a decade in the Lord. It would have been weird if I would have been like, I'm discipling you. You know, it was much more organic to do relationship, and then the discipleship and the mentoring happened that way. So 100%. I think that's a good, because I don't think there's any right or wrong way. I just think we need to be doing life with people.
100%. Yeah. But then here's the thing that I think the church needs to do better is we need to provide more Christian educational environments. Okay. Because part of why I think this Gen Z biblical worldview is so low is because the modern church in many ways has defaulted everything to the small groups. Yeah. And if you look at the data around that, it's like a high number of small group leaders report not even ever being trained. And then even the ones that are trained, they're more so trained in the areas of, like the current curriculum and everything.
Sure.
But one of the things I encourage all pastors to do, and we're actually working on a tool to do this, but everyone can do it with ChatGPT and a Google form, is I think more pastors need to find ways to pull areas of their staff, their leadership, maybe their whole congregation, their small group leaders, on what their overall biblical literacy is. And there's a way with the power of AI and just to know what are areas that are weak, because most people, if you don't know something, you don't know. So Christians aren't walking around being like, I have a really flawed, way of approaching, XYZ subject. They only know what they know.
That's right.
And so it takes a teacher. And so one of the things that the modern church did is it assumed that we were obedient beyond, we were educated beyond our obedience. So we slashed programs, we slashed Sunday schools, we just got rid of all of it. And maybe that's what needed to happen for 10 years, but we didn't think about the effects of what church would look like when we removed all areas of spiritual education. And so I think we need to bring Sunday school back. I think we need to bring catechism back. I feel for pastors. There's 52 Sundays in a year and 66 books of the Bible. Yeah, that's right. 66 books of the Bible. and so even if a pastor tried to preach every book in the Bible in a year, they couldn't. So Sundays are not enough. And we need to create different environments for spiritual formation.
Well, this is a great way to segue into our brand integration with Logos. Some of you guys don't know this. Logos is a partner of the channel. They're giving all you guys a free 60-day trial. And one of the things I actually love about you mentioned AI. Sometimes I'm a little sketched out by AI.
Totally.
But Logos has an AI built on actual curriculum. So if you go in here and you could say, give me a biblical framework. So you could search here, right? Give me a biblical framework for abortion. And then they will consolidate all the AI, not just based on what your what ChatGPT is going to feed you, but there's a whole thing. The biblical framework for abortion emerges from several key theological principles. Biblical ethics argue that since humans are made in God's image and God personally forms each unborn child, abortion is counterintuitive to divine design. While the Bible does not directly mention or prohibit abortion, its silence should not be interpreted as consistent.
AI, preach.
Instead,
that's sanctified AI.
Right? Instead, theological principles supporting the condemnation of abortion include, and it goes through it, and it gives you a whole layout with additional resources.
Yeah, linking to their library.
Linking to the library. So that, when you're talking about, hey, you should have a degree of literacy, this is where I think, a 60-day trial of Logos can help a lot of you guys. And it's $10 a month after that. And the AI feature comes built in to all of that. So sometimes it's like, man, I think getting something like this could actually help in exactly what you're talking about. So equip people.
And I love pastors too. But one of the things I get really tired of hearing pastors do is complain about podcasters. Joe Rogan's not your podcast or your pastor. Jordan Peterson's not your podcaster. Well, let me tell you why they're prominent. Because they're speaking on things that, by and large, the church is silent on. Areas of lifestyle, areas of deeper thought. And so the only reason I think that Andrew Tate ever had a spot is because Christian men had vacated areas of thought and speaking to masculinity that he, coming in with perverse ideas, came and tried to fill. And I love Jordan Peterson, but he should not be ranked in the top 10 theologians we're hearing from every day. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying there are better people that I just don't think either pastors are letting people know about or that really have risen up. Thank God for Wes Huff. You see people like that. I tell people all the time, if you want a masterclass on how to reach young Gen Z men for Jesus, watch his episode on the Flagrant podcast. It is that's exactly the questions young men are asking about the Bible. Yeah, they'll get into the weird stuff, like those guys did, but they're also like, so you telling me you're only going to have sex with one lady, And the way Wes addresses that and unpacks that, it's like, wow. Yeah.
Shout out Wes Huff, good friend of the channel. Wes will also be at the Bless God Summit. Go to blessgodsummit.com, get more information on that. But that's a lot of what we're trying to do. We're trying to equip men. I just did a talk at a church, and we were vlogging it. And one of the things I thought was interesting was that it's actually out in North Carolina.
Oh, dope.
And the pastor is super jacked, really solid dude, masculine dude.
Yeah.
But in my opening, I'm already talking about health and fitness. I'm talking about calories in, calories out. And I'm talking about and so the feedback I got was a lot of people were like, man, that really we need to talk about this stuff more often in church. We need to talk about fitness, health, nutrition, finances, right? So in my introduction, and maybe this is why I don't get invited to a lot of churches, I'm not holding back. Like, I'm telling people straight up, like, hey, your body is a temple of the living God. And modern psychology, if you read Atomic Habits, confirms that like habit formation flows out of identity. Habit formation flows out of identity. The issue is the secular world has no epistemological basis for your identity.
Right.
We as followers of Jesus, J. Warner Wallace said, we have a top-down identity. We are who Jesus says you are. So like an issue like health and fitness, right? Instead of saying like, hey man, chase vanity, chase being the biggest jacked guy ever, the most, it's like, no. My body is a temple of God, according to 1 Corinthians.
Right.
Therefore, I need to take care of myself, which means I probably need to lift some heavy things. I probably need to move, get my 10,000 steps, sleep good, eat well. And it's all connected, but to your point, I don't think we talk a lot about this stuff.
No.
And so guess what happens? Then the world is going to have other people fill that void. And hey man, if we're lucky, it's Jordan Peterson. If we're unlucky, it's Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and that's
100%.
And that to me is scary, because if you really listen to some of the stuff that's coming out on both ends of the spectrum, right? This weird horseshoe that we see between the far right and the far left, there's not a lot of solutions.
No.
There's just, they're bad over there.
Yep.
And your situation sucks.
Yep.
Because fill in the blank, because of the system, because of racism, because of sexism, because of Israel, because of fill in the blank, right?
Yep.
And they're the immigrants, the black people, they're all out to get you.
Yep.
And so you're robbing young men of their agency.
Yep.
And yeah, they'll go to church, but I think they need to be equipped to say, no. I have a degree of control and agency over my life.
Yep.
And the scriptures actually have a whole lot to say about this.
Yeah.
Now let me lean into that and walk through that and live out a biblical world.
Well, because this is the reality. Whatever the church is silent on, social media will be loud about. Whatever someone doesn't get taught at church, they will learn from culture.
That's good.
Period.
That's good.
And so this is what I tell pastors all the time. I just go, I'm not saying you need to go make a political YouTube. I don't even know how every church should carry this out. And I think there's lots of faithful executions of it. All I know for certain is that if they're not learning about it within God's church, it will be formed from somewhere else. And then you say, well, they should learn from their parents. Who's teaching their parents? Because even millennials only had, in that same Barna stat, they only had a 33% biblical worldview. And so who's teaching them? And I think there's this idea that there's this magical place where Americans are like transmitted like a basic understanding of the Bible, and that's just not true. And so even like, bro, you know what? When I preach and post to Gen Z, the topics that pop off the most, like the wrath of God, because it contextualizes the grace of God. And if you just get up there and you like sing Reckless Love, shout out Corey, you sing Reckless Love to like Gen Z kids are like, of course God, everyone loves me. Everyone should love me. We all love each other, right?
Special.
I'm special. I'm great. But you get up there and one of my favorite messages to preach is about how Jesus on Palm Sunday, that is the same sequence of events as Jesus flipping the tables. So this like super like, Maverick City worship, upper room moment at the gates leads with Jesus flexing on the Romans, by the way, and everyone mimicking a conquering king entering, the city. And then he gets there and Jesus doesn't hug everyone. He doesn't say, it's okay. How are you feeling? He flips those tables. And preaching that kind of sovereignty of God, the sanctity of his word, it does something to him. And then when you at the very end, you hit him with and that same God calls you friend. That same God died for you.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. And I think you can see this in a lot of teachers that are resonating. JP included. He's talking about stuff,
Yeah.
And I think that the churches that don't will become irrelevant, which is hilarious because many of those churches that don't talk about cultural subjects were the ones that once prided themselves on being the most relevant.
Woo! Well, yeah. I mean, I think we were talking about this at lunch. Like, I love the moment. There was a moment about a decade ago where we saw, and I'm not name checking these guys because I think they're bad guys.
Yeah.
I want to have a conversation with all these guys. I don't know if they would talk to me publicly. I think Lentz may. I think Carl may at some point. But Carl, Judah, Rich Wilkerson,
I think Rich would. Rich should. I mean, the last 2 guests he had on, I was very surprised.
Yeah.
This is cool. We love you, Rich. Talk to Ruslan.
Yeah, maybe. I've heard other things I'll tell you about later.
Okay,
but I think these guys where Rich is marrying Kanye and Kim.
Yeah,
Carl's hanging out, with Bieber and baptizing athletes and leaving, neighborhood barbecues to go play basketball with Drake and all this sort of stuff. So we're seeing this, but I think they did a disservice by not being more clear on the questions that people wanted to ask them.
100%.
And so it looked like, and again, I don't know how Carl would feel about this now, but it would look like him going on Oprah and saying, hey, we don't talk about abortion or homosexuality publicly. We talk about it, behind closed doors. In relationships. And it's like, but is that what the scriptures did? Because I don't see that in the scriptures. And so I think we had this moment a decade ago where, man, these dudes were cool, they were popular, they were connected. But when it came to the real cultural questions, I think they took the Tim Keller third wayism, didn't want to lean into the hard conversations.
Right.
And now you fast forward a decade, and I think you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. And so it's like,
well, I think that you can't do it anymore. And then I think the humble question, I think every person needs to ask of themselves, and certainly church leaders do, is, did it even work then? And I think that there is, unfortunately, I don't think it's a heresy, but I think it's a theological belief that has maybe outgrown its usefulness, which is just this over enthused sense on just that initial moment of salvation. It's like we're just upset. It's like that's everything. So the reason why Carl wouldn't say that is because what he's envisioning is that if he says that, it will stop X amount of people from entering his church door and doing the hand raise thing. And that's touchdown. And I think a touchdown in scripture is forming and faith. I mean, dude, the amount of times Paul's like, yeah, kick that guy out of the church. Don't associate with them, but don't treat them like in 1 Thessalonians. Don't associate with them anymore. But them, don't hang out with them, but don't treat them like an enemy. Pray for that God would. There's just so much. James 5 is saying, whoever wins back, a brother who has strayed from the truth has like saved him from hell. And to me, the touchdown is not even just in the initial salvation moment. It's in the discipleship moment. Even when Philip the evangelist gets to Samaria, he leads Simon the sorcerer to Christ, leads him to Christ. Everything seems good. Peter and John get there and they're like, this dude's fake. This dude's not a Christian, Philip. And so I think some of why we made those errors is because we had the wrong end zone.
That's good. Okay, so now let me ask you something uncomfortable. And you can avoid the question. You can dance. You can do what you do. Okay. So you have worked with Turning Point USA. You were at Elevation. Up until a year and a half ago. There for 5 years. The morning Charlie Kirk got assassinated, we were reacting to a video. I don't know if we put it out. I don't think we put it out. It was just a grip thing. He called out Stephen Furtick. And he said, hey, man, you posted a black box for George Floyd, which happened in Minnesota. But you are not saying anything about this Ukrainian refugee that got killed in your own city. And then I think Elevation didn't say anything about Charlie, I believe, and kind of got some backlash. So like how what do you make of all of that? Because that's kind of eerie to think about. Like that Charlie was calling out Furtick. You know, and I was like, I wasn't like the biggest Charlie fanboy. I liked some of his takes. I was invited to some of the Turning Point USA faith events. Kind of wish I would have went in hindsight. But I looked at it and was like, yeah, Charlie kind of got a point. Like, why is he not saying anything? You know, it's like, hey man, everyone posted a black box for George Floyd and it was this big thing. But here you have other cultural issues and like it's silent. And so I thought, well, maybe Furtick learned from the George Floyd thing and now he doesn't want to take positions on this stuff. So like, what do you make of all of that with regards to Elevation, not speaking into any of these cultural things or not directly? I don't know, maybe they are privately in small groups. What do you make of that?
Well, I think I just think that whatever we're silent on, we give space for everyone to fill in XYZ. And I think that when you look at that era of pastors you talk about, they all took major hits in the news on different things. Honestly, a lot of it having to do with their lifestyle. So like the Furtick family, They built a big house. They got dragged through the mud. You know, Chris Hodges, you know, Rich, like all of them have gone through ways and that I haven't, you know, maybe you have at times, you know, like,
I mean, what do you think of my 1,400 square foot home built in 1960?
Well, I just mean specifically, there is a certain type of pain of being dragged through them, of being attacked publicly, even if you're wrong. It just hurts.
Yeah.
And so
I'm saying I've been dragged through it.
Yeah.
But I know my real life.
Right.
And I know my real friends.
Yeah.
My real life with my real family and how I really spend my money. So I'm so numb to it at this point.
And
you know
so
what I mean?
I just say that to say my thought is that maybe that there are those moments that are so burning in their head
that they're
that
afraid.
It's hard. They're afraid. It feels like to me it's an area of trauma that needs to be redeemed because I think that's even. Here's why Forrest Frank to me is so popular and so controversial, because he's one of the only content creators in the church, in Christianity, that talks like how other public profile figures do out in the world, which is honestly, imperfectly, and in real time. And Forrest knows that the media landscape we live in is you got to say something now about something you think you should say about, knowing that you're going to say it imperfectly, but knowing that, guess what? There will always be people that hate you, but then also, guess what? You'll have a chance to say something else.
Yep.
And my prayer for those guys would be, you know, and my question would be, man, like, are you good? Like, if you're staying out of it, is it because God's leading or is it because of past pain? And then my question is in the absence of, you know, in the absence of their voice, what voices are they allowing? And then just very specifically on, like, because I'm not trying to, as a local church pastor, I think, you know, do you know Brady Shearer at all? I don't know him, but he and I interact sometimes on Instagram. He posted a really good guide on why and how and what things churches should respond to. And one of the things he said is if it's something that impacts locally. And so I think that Charlie's question to Stephen Furtick was one that I imagine many people that go to Elevation asked. And I think it's a very fair question because Elevation didn't just talk about George Floyd. There's a whole Sunday and small group series that was like set aside for it. And so,
For real?
Yeah. John Gray did a whole Sunday and so I think it's a fair question. And I know,
But they didn't do anything for Charlie.
No. And I just think I think it's a fair question, man.
Yeah.
And now I'm also not on some like Mark Driscoll stuff like leave a church off of one Sunday. I think that's encouraging spiritual immaturity.
Yeah.
But I also think that if people in your church are wondering that, it's very fair to ask that.
Yeah.
Only other thing I have to say is too, just like the world I want to live in someday is a world where Charlie and Stephen Furtick can go talk about that offline. Same thing with, you know, and I know the Driscolls like I like them, you know, but the way that he acted that, I think he missed a moment where it's like, hey, some of these pastors you're yelling at will probably just get on a call with you. So you're shouting this ambiguous kind of challenge instead of the way I see it is, this is something that I think that we really miss, especially in the evangelical world. Jesus left 11 very different dudes to run this church.
Yeah. That's good.
And then Matthias came in, and then you had a core of very different women, and then it just quickly grew. And I think Jesus's idea was that all of them were supposed to talk to each other and pull on each other and push them.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening right now is everyone's just, the apostolic figures are getting siloed out when I think they need to be coming together, even if it's not publicly. I'm not saying y'all have to do a podcast, but bro, we're getting killed out there because people they're going into their silos.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, you know, the thing about the Driscoll comments that bugged me were that there was good pastors that I know, who caught strays for not saying enough. They said something, but there wasn't enough.
Right.
For saying too much.
Yeah.
And guys that, you know, they had a moment planned at the campuses, but for whatever reason, it didn't work it into, you know, multi-site guys.
Or some posted about it and they thought that was enough.
Yes.
Not realizing that only 20% of your followers see any given post.
Right.
So they didn't say it on Sunday because they're like, I thought I posted about it.
I know specifically of a pastor who, a bunch of pastors told me, man, that was like the past couple weeks was really hard for them.
Yeah.
Because here's an example. Hey, it wasn't in the talk that the main communicator gave.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be in all the campuses.
Right.
A moment of silence in this whole thing. But some of the campuses fumbled. And so then the whole church got hit, and the guy that gave the talk got hit, and it was like, well, I didn't work it in the talk. We worked it in the pre-talk worship moment.
Yeah, because they weren't seeing what's locally happening at the campuses. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, man, that's a bummer. And so, yeah, I think Driscoll, you know, probably closer to Charlie and closer to Turning Point, and I think kind of overdid it with that regard. It's a bummer. So to your point, I think there needs to be more conversations. Unpack what you mean by like apostolic voices, because you're not saying capital A apostles,
no,
right? That's
no.
not what you're saying, but you're saying
like
unpack that.
The layman Protestant brain rot way of saying it would be like, we don't need a pope, but we need bishops. Like I don't think we need a centralized. I think having one centralized figurehead, that's just dangerous. But I think that you know, evangelicals are all technically Protestant. Pretty much every Protestant mainline denomination is like in shambles in some way, especially theologically. And then evangelicals, individual churches are doing well, but there's no association of them. And even the ones that are, even the Assemblies of God, they don't call themselves the denomination. And I love the AG. And
I need to do the Southern Baptist.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, make the AG a denomination again. What's that? You know, not because I think that it's about control or power. I think there is authority is loving. When I take authority, when I walk in the authority God has given me as my kid's dad, that is loving to them. And if I act like I'm not an authority figure in their life, I think that actually is confusing to them and can lead them astray.
Yeah.
And so I just think that we need to figure out, like, I think there almost needs to be like a modern Council of Nicaea not on, you know, the validity of scripture and the canonization of it, but rather on going like, these big dogs, pastors got to get in a room with each other and go, what are we doing, boys?
Yeah.
And they got to have it out.
Yeah.
And I know it's so idealistic,
Yeah.
but I'm like, even if it happens with a fraction of pastors, you know, and I would even, seems like that's what Josh Howardin is doing. He's getting a group of guys.
Yeah.
But what I would want is, I would want there to be some plurality.
Yeah.
I think we need a level of plurality, not in primary doctrine, but maybe even approach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Josh is actually doing a good job. I know there's quite a few different group text threads and a lot of the stuff. I mean, the you know, between, I guess, you, me, and the audience, the reason how I got on Sean Ryan was because I knew my pastor was bummed by the Sean Ryan podcast with regards to Nathan from the religion business. And then so me and Nathan have been trying to connect, but I made a couple of videos about Nathan, and I was like, man, I don't want to keep making videos about it. And it was my pastor kind of standing on his authority. My pastor never really tells me to make videos.
Yeah.
But it was my pastor who sent me the podcast and said, hey, you should react to this. And then I hit Josh Howardson and I said, hey, what things from this do I need to react to?
Yeah.
And that video came to be because I listened to spiritual authority in my real life with real friends of mine.
Yep.
That then I didn't want to make it. I didn't want to make another video dunking on Nathan from the religion business. I really didn't want that to be the tone, but I prayed, I made it. And that was what got on Sean Ryan's podcast, on their radar. And that's what got me on the Sean Ryan podcast. So I think there's something to, I'm not saying it's like magical, but there's something in the spirit realm with regards to spiritual authority.
100%. And I think that it's also, it is also, I think, a great example for content creators. I don't think people should support or listen to content creators who don't have a pastor.
I would say who aren't active in their local church.
And who aren't active in their local church.
Like, who's sending you?
Who's sending you? Who's covering you?
Who's shepherding you? Who has authority over you to tell you to stop?
And I think that if you're a Christian content creator, you should do, I think all of us can do better at just trying to just show love to our local church and our pastor.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to watch about doxing things and certain of them, but like find ways. Honestly, someone who did that pretty well towards the end was Charlie Kirk. He presents his he was pointing to, and I think that's very admirable.
Rob McCoy, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out to Pastor Rob McCoy. Yeah, totally, man. Well, listen, I know you got to get going because you got an event in San Diego. Hopefully we have you back on.
Yeah.
And we can go deeper on some of the stuff. But just final words, final thoughts. Folks watching this, they're excited about what's happening. They see the revival.
Yeah.
People are flooding their churches. Pastors are listening to this. They're trying to figure out how to navigate this. What would be some just practical, on the boots advice for how to kind of mentor and disciple this next generation that's coming into the church right now?
Yeah, I think the future of church discipleship is being very clear on what topics you're going to cover in like an 8-week period. and just more classes. We need to bring classes back and drive people to sign up. The win of a class is not that you get 300 people there. You know, again, sometimes that's a problem with small groups is we're measuring how many, but not how much. We have 8,000 people in small groups, but I think we've got to start measuring, man, but what if we had 100 people complete our biblical literacy course? What if we had 20 people go through our church history course? And I think that there's so many resources out there to do that.
Yep.
And I would encourage pastors to try to make more inroads with educational institutions that they can trust, with content creators that they can trust to utilize content. And then I think when it comes to Sunday, I just think that the question of what are we willing to let our silence seed ground to the culture? Like what areas are we willing to do that? And then you got to take that before the Lord and you've got to pray. And then maybe just the last thing I'd say, just encouraging you is like, bro, like to pastors, like your people love you, like your people, like Jesus said, my sheep know my voice.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we get so obsessed with the people that are not for us, that might never have been for us, and that might have left anyway. And I just think that at the end of the day, a pastor's greatest thing they're being graded on by God is not how many people they reached. It's the people they shepherded.
Yeah.
And I think we've just got to reclaim and celebrate pastors who are quality over quantity people. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with quantity, but I think if quantity comes at the cost of quality of discipleship, there starts to be a problem. And we've just got to really be aware and ask the Holy Spirit for open eyes to see how some of this modern kind of like flawed seeker-sensitive theology has even muddied popular scripture. Like the parable of the 99, dog, that's not about lost people. Or I would say it's not exclusively about lost people because the sheep was a part of a flock.
That's right. That's right.
And so we preach this as like John 15, the prodigal son.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? He didn't leave the house. The story of the prodigal son, he didn't actually go out looking for the lost. In fact, there is a bit there of a cautionary tale of what happens when we neglect the people that are in the house, or when the people in the house neglect their relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I just think like we've just got to, we should be championing pastors and celebrating them. And pastors, you should just, I just hope you can start to feel good about the depth of your community. You know, I'll give John Mark Comer some love in this quote. One of the best things I've heard him say. There's a lot that I see differently with him on, but one thing I love that he said once is he said one of the greatest things pastors can do is form a vision statement or just have vision for the 100 most core members of their church. We have these big visions. We have this corporate, everything's so corporate, everything's so big. And I think we've got to see, to sustain this revival, we've got to see a revival of like pastoral shepherding. And then I think if pastors shepherd more, they'll create more shepherds to help them actually do it.
That's good.
So
that's good.
No easy answers, but I love pastors.
Yeah. John Rush, ladies and gentlemen. That was great, man. All right, guys, we're out of here. Peace. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you liked it, then hit the like button. If you liked it a lot and have a thought to share, leave a comment. If you are listening to this on the podcast app, make sure to leave a review, and you could even leave a comment over there. And if you want to watch another video that is recommended just for you, hit this video over here. Let me know if they nailed it. Also, you can partner with us monthly, which helps us out a lot in our monthly community, get access to early drops and all that kind of good stuff over here. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.